Welcome back to the cast, everybody. We're on episode 11. This is going to be our recap from Trinidad. We've got Alex Rojas and Jeremy Pierce with us today. Welcome to the show, guys.
Right on.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. First thing, I just wanted to kind of go over the agenda for the show. That way, if you're more interested in one piece or the other, at least see what we're going to highlight today. So, recent events that we've had for the club. We had Trinidad, we had Bass on the 10th of June, and then the next day on the 11th, we had the multi-tournament. We did that True Patriot Outfitters event up at Stanley. That was yesterday, June 24th. Pretty cool event. Got to see Gene actually, working with some vets there, and it's pretty cool. So it's doing great stuff there. It's our where our money's going this year, with the charities. And then if you haven't heard on the page, Chris Cohn had a pretty significant flip in 11 Mile last week. Some good lessons learned there. His life jacket ended up getting tangled up on his kayak while he was submerged. Really scary, but some good lessons learned on the post through there. I'm actually going to interview Chris next week, and we're going to do a show with him on it. And then that kind of just takes us up to where we are now. I wanted to pull up the old AOY and show this here real quick. So let's see if I can get this up here. Maybe. There it is. All right, so here we are. We got a few events down. We've got more multi-events than we have Bass done right now, just because John Martin getting scratched with weather. But Eric Ali leading the way in Bass. No surprise there, but a super tight race. Anyone's game, really, in Bass. And then multi, tournament director himself, Justin, is up there. Alex, you're up there. Ronnie. And that one's still pretty tight as well. We've got the South Park events coming up, and those things are a blast. So really anybody's game for these, but it's a tight race. So
I'll say
this that consistency there, where I'm 7th on both lists.
Yeah.
I'll say this too for people that don't know. We take your top three best scores out of 5. So if you still want to jump in, we still have 3 Bass events left. And so you can still win this AOY thing with just the next 3 events. So there's that. We have 2 more multi-species events left as well. So if you fished one, you can qualify with the next 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pull that down. We've got a Rookie of the Year as well. I don't have the stats pulled for that, but if it's your first year competing in CKFC, really cool. You get a trophy and some cash at the end of the year, and it's cool competition for the new guys. Matt Flanagan and I duked it out. I think everybody that's in the club, they got that story of, who they were fighting after on their first year, and then you'll learn a ton doing it. So, and then
what's the qualification?
Qualification for Rookie of the Year?
Yep.
Just has to be your first tournament, and then separate from where Bass and Multi are your best 3 tournaments of either. It's your best 3 tournaments overall, so you can mix Bass and Multi for the rookie. So if you only did 3 tournaments, but it was maybe 1 Bass and 2 Multi, that counts for Rookie of the Year.
Got it.
Cool. Upcoming on the schedule, our next tournament is Horsetooth. That is July 15th. That's a Bass tournament. And then later in July, we've got Spinney on the 29th. That'll be a multi-tournament. And then, Jeremy, we'll talk after the interviews here, but the West Coast Championship, that's in August 18th and 19th, but the qualifications for that, we're going to discuss that towards the end of the show. And then that's all we got for July. So, Alex, we're going to let you kind of lead up the interview process on this guy, and we'll talk Trinidad.
So we had a plan. Matt didn't follow through with this plan, though. The idea, since Matt's the host cast here, Matt was supposed to interview himself. He's supposed to talk to himself the whole time. He's going to say, hey, Matt, how'd you win this event? Well, Matt, let me tell you how I won this event. it didn't play out that way. That'd have been great though.
Yeah, I got too.
Anyways, let's get. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just got too lazy to do it.
Great, hilarious. But so we had 35 anglers compete on Saturday at Trinidad for the bass tournament. We had, I mean, it was an incredible day. I think we had 4 people that did not catch a limit. I think that's pretty accurate, I believe.
Yeah.
Am I right, Jeremy? Is that pretty? I think
Yeah.
that was about right. Yeah, I think we had
Yep.
4 people, and I think a couple of those people may not have shown up. So it was.
Yeah,
It was a pretty-
2 of the people that didn't have a limit didn't even show up to the tournament. And numbers wise, it was a phenomenal day.
Yeah, I mean, everybody caught them. I think it's the first time. I think all top 10 had 80 inches or above. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, I was
Right?
10th place with 80 and a half.
80 and a half inches to get 10th place. That's incredible. So we've had 2 down years with Trinidad the last 2 years. We fished it in the fall, and then we fished it, I believe it was June also. And
Yeah.
those last events were pretty dismal as far as inches goes. Number of fish probably was not, but I mean, it seemed like it was trending downward as far as the quality of the fish with Trinidad. But I mean, this one proved us wrong again, right? So it was a great tournament. I mean, talk about numbers, talk about quality. Everybody seemed to catch them pretty well. And pretty much however you wanted to catch them, you could catch them. They were in all phases. They were post-spawn, pre-spawn, and spawning. They're all over the place. So that brings me to Mr. Matt Collins here. He had 87 inches. I was asked if that was the best it took to win this tournament. That is not. Mike Archuleta, I believe, won it with 89 and 88 2 times, I think. He's won twice. Both times were in the but still, that was still a very, very, very good day. 87 inches was phenomenal. And you got that pretty early, right, Matt? So congratulations first off, Matt, on winning that tournament. It's your first win, correct?
Yeah. First check. Yeah.
Ever with any in CKFC? It's only tournaments you fished, right? CKFC so far?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this has been it. Last year was my rookie year.
So this is your first check. You haven't placed 3rd or better?
Nope.
That's pretty exciting.
Placed 5th a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. So tell us about your day. Tell us, like, pre-fishing, because I know you went up there a week or 2 before. Just tell us, how your day went, whatever you want to share with us.
Yeah. So I went up the weekend before. It's pretty much what my work schedule lets me do sometimes is I'll fish the Saturday before a tournament or something that weekend before. So I went up and I was catching them, and I could tell that, when we fished Pueblo, I don't know if it was maybe just a little bit cooler down there. Air temps, or like summer was just taking a little bit longer. Spring was taking longer to get going. But the water temps were kind of behind, but they were really where Pueblo was at when we fished the tournament in Pueblo like a month before. So I was like, okay, well, that's cool, because they were on beds at Pueblo. I was like, maybe they're on beds here. And they were. So I found a few on beds. Really, they were all over the lake. But pre-fishing, I just had like a real finicky bite. I didn't feel very confident about it. I was catching them, but the fish I was catching on, they were just swallowing the hook. It was really hard to even feel the bite. And I didn't want to sit there and just kill a bunch of fish pre-fishing, trying to, make sure they don't swallow the hook and everything. So while that was going on, I had a few places that I had a plan for, but I didn't have the best plan. I went up actually the day before the tournament as well for this one. And I didn't really even pre-fish for multi at all. I just kind of would troll between points and be like, okay, they're over here. But for bass, both the weekend before and the day before the tournament, I found a couple spots that I was pulling bedfish off, and I was like, okay, they bit twice. I think I can get them to bite a 3rd time in there. So that was my plan going in, was like, hey, on the actual tournament day, I'm going to go to where those fish are on beds. Those were the bigger ones that I had. And those are the fish that I couldn't get on tournament day. So it started a little rough.
course.
But yeah, so that covered pre-fishing. Going out for the actual tournament, I got out there and I spent the first hour trying to catch those fish on beds and nothing. And I was like, oh crap, did they just move out? Like maybe it's a time of day thing because I didn't fish the bed super early. So I fished some stuff around that I would also hit on. And then I was throwing a weighted wacky rig, kind of as just a confidence bait at that point, thinking, hey, maybe we'll hit this. And then it started pretty early. I think I had a limit the second hour, not the first, but the second hour, I got a limit pretty quick. And then after that, it was just upgrading, throughout the day. The bite was really good. I think I had most of my limit before lunch, and then I limited out on the bigger fish, actually a little bit deeper, or I upgraded with the bigger fish a little bit deeper later in the day. So, yeah.
That's great. So, what was your biggest fish?
I think I had, so they were all between 17 and 17 and 3/4. So I think I had two 17 and 3/4, 17 and a half, and I don't remember after that. But yeah, I remember I the last fish that I culled, I think, was like a 16 and a half. I culled with the 17. So it was just, everything was good that day, man. I didn't lose a single fish. It just felt good. You hear about people saying, you felt like it was the time or whatever. My wife always calls during tournaments, and I was like, I might have it today. And
Right.
It just felt good, man. I wasn't losing fish. I was calm. I wasn't stressing about anything. So yeah, it was a fun day.
So were you what point did you think I have a chance to either place or even win? Like how many inches were you at? And did you start looking at the leaderboard at any point in time?
So I didn't look at the leaderboard for the first, I looked later in the day. The bite slowed down and I took a look. I think it was afternoon because the wind was picking up too and it was blowing people around pretty good. So I did look at the leaderboard then, and I think I had maybe like 85 or something at that point. And I was like, okay, I feel pretty good with this. I knew I'd be in the top. And then I think once I got over 86, I was like, okay, I think I might happen, because you won 86 with 86 and change at Pueblo, and then I called that last one to go to 87. I was like, I hope that's good enough. I saw, I will say, I saw Eric Ali put his bag in, and he didn't wait until the end, and I was like, okay, I might have a chance. Once I start seeing the people that normally, they just wait to put in, I felt pretty good about it. But you never know. That last hour, someone always hits it. So.
Well, and Josh Gardner, man, when the standings went off and people started putting them in, and we have our normal people that kind of put in a little bit late, and then we started seeing Josh Gardner's come in and more fish, and his limit posted. I thought Matt was pretty safe with 87, and then Josh Gardner put up 86 and 3/4. I was like, man, you needed every little bit that you had.
Yeah, that was the crazy thing, was how many people were right there. Like that lake fished great. And I got some stats for it that I'll get into that I think are just cool for the club. But yeah, I mean, it was right there. He was right there. Eric was right there. It was pretty close.
Yeah.
So funny, because I talked to Josh Gardner, and he was telling me he was catching them out deep. I mean, I passed him late in the day. He was in 50 foot of water. No joke. 50 foot of water.
Jeez.
Throwing Nico or a drop shot. And I didn't know it was him. I just passed him like, who the hell's fishing in 50 foot of water over here? And it was him. And he told me he caught one out there that deep. He caught a lot of his fish in 30 foot of water. it was crazy how he's fishing really deep, and you were probably fishing, Matt, what, 5 foot, 10 foot?
Yeah, it just depended. I think the last one that I culled with was the deepest one, and that was on a drop shot. Basically, I was fishing just whatever structure or change of terrain I could find, because I knew that the fish were moving in and out with that spawn. So I wanted to see, hey, they're gonna have some cover to come off of, and realistically, most of the bites that I got, there was so much grass at Trinidad. I don't remember having that much grass last year, but it probably did. But most of my bites came when I would get off the grass, and whether that was I threw a Texas rig, speed crawl for a while, I threw a jig, and when I got off that grass and I'd feel the rock tick, or even like a twig or some timber or rocks, if I felt that, they were hitting. So I don't doubt at all deeper if there was some structure down there that they were there. I think my deepest one was like 22 feet or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting just to see how different people were fishing and still catching them. Like I said, they're in all phases. So it was. I love that lake. It's probably my favorite lake as far as quality goes, and it's a fun place to fish too, right?
Yeah.
But Pueblo's my favorite. But yeah.
Well, Jason,
it was interesting. It was a.
I was gonna say, Jason Duong found largemouth, and I was like, oh man, it's over. He's gonna hammer largemouth all day, because Jeremy, you too. Was yours a largemouth? Because
no, so mine was an 18 and a quarter smallmouth.
Yeah,
I never could find any of the largemouth. I did go down that kind of the southwestern side a little bit to where it opens up into the back area with the trees and the brush, and I thought maybe I'd run into a rogue largemouth, and never did.
Yeah, I know Jason had that 18 and a half, because I thought for sure you were going to take large fish for that day, big fish. But yeah, so some of the stats that I pulled, because I fished it last year and I didn't do near as well. I think I took 10th with 60 inches and 72 and a quarter. Jeremy, you won last year, right?
Yep.
72 and a quarter last year. That would take 25th place this year. So it was just fishing. It was on, 10th place was 80 and a half.
20.
So, yeah, 25 inches in 25th place.
Wow.
Or sorry, 15 inches. Yeah. And then multi was still kind of the same way. It was 10 inches up off of last year for the leader. So, and then even at Pueblo, you won with 86 and 3/4. Last year was 80 and a half. And then multi was up a couple inches as well. So Trinidad and Pueblo this year have been really good for our tournaments. So, or the anglers are just getting way better.
Yeah, I'll say Pueblo, the week before our tournament for CKFC, CKB had theirs. I think it was a week before, right? And they had 3 guys over 80 inches. At our tournament, we had 4 guys over 80, or 3 or 4 over 80, something like that. So I think Pueblo's actually, starting to turn on better. I think the quality is just getting better there. It's it's all cyclical. Lakes are always cyclical, and I think right now Pueblo's just on an upturn, and Trinidad hopefully back on an upturn, because the last 2 years were not so good for Trinidad. The fish are still there, it's just finding them off, obviously, right? But Trinidad, the quality of Trinidad, right, as we saw this past week, right? So it was insane. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we also hit Trinidad at a very similar point in the year as we did last year, but the water level, where I caught my 18 and a half last year, that whole area was under like 3 foot of water. So I think that the water level definitely had a little bit to do with it. It's holding water a little bit longer before it starts to draw down. So a lot of those fish are able to hold into the areas that we're typically going there to fish before they actually start to move off. And I think that definitely has helped a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, timing's everything on a lake, right?
Yep.
Timing's absolutely everything. Horsetooth, we're gonna hit that one right too. Horsetooth, you catch fish almost always, except for in April, maybe. But it'll be on. The problem we're gonna have with Horsetooth is just dealing with the boat traffic and stand-up paddle boarders and that kind of thing. But it is what it is. It's Colorado. We got to deal with it, right? So
Yeah, I went there this past weekend, and man, or maybe it was Monday. Yeah, Juneteenth. I had that off, so I went up there, and golly, that water level, it's got to be. I don't even know how to guess it, but where the boat ramp was like 100 feet stretch at least down there, the water's up at where the gate goes down. So there's like no boat ramp. It's just straight to the water.
So how much are the trees completely submerged?
All the way, the trunks are completely submerged, all the way to where the first set of branches go.
Oh,
so it's got to be up probably 15, 20 feet. It's crazy.
I love that. That'll be fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. So yeah, I saw Josh Gardner out there, and Terry Dora was out there. I saw Chad LaChance out there, Fish Thinker. Super nice guy. He was getting pizza. I didn't know it, but they deliver pizza in the cove there. So if you're just like hanging out in the cove, they'll just deliver pizza out to you. So
that's good to know. Hey, so I don't think we've heard your story, Matt. Let's just real quick before we move on to Jeremy and talk about Jeremy's day on Sunday with the multi-species. Tell us your story about how you got into kayak fishing, because I mean, yeah, everybody likes to hear those stories. So let's just hear it.
So I was, I'm in the military. I was in Afghanistan on, it was my first deployment, and I was a Green Beret then. And my team sergeant was like, "Hey man, if you want to do good at this hobby, or if you want to do good, mentally, you need a hobby. And if you want to like stay in." So I was like, "All right, cool. Like, what do you do, man?" And he's like, "Well, I like to fish." And I was like, "Okay, I like to fish too," but I was just crappie fishing and stuff, with my dad growing up. So he turned me on to a dude in Tennessee that he had bought all of his kayaks from. Ended up being Chad Hoover. I bought a kayak from him. It's like a wilderness ride, so it was a straight paddle. And I got back and I got into it. I loved it. Fast forward a few years, about 10 years later, I was down in flight school in kind of the Gulf area, lower Alabama and Florida. And I had a buddy down there, and I was in my paddle kayak fishing for crappie with him. And he's like, "Hey man, he had a pair of Hobies. He had Outbacks, him and his wife did." And then, I ended up buying a Pro Angler when I was down there, because I was like, "Can I try that out?" And I was like, this just getting blown around in the wind all the time with paddle kayak was a pain in the butt. So I actually did a bunch of Gulf fishing down there, redfish and speckled trout, flounder, whatever you could catch down there in the Gulf, And then did bass fish a little bit down there. Kind of got into that a little bit more. Lower Alabama, like I was like an hour from Eufaula, so we'd go there quite a bit. And then moved up here, and that's where I really got a little bit more serious about it. I think I even had my kayak up for sale before I found the club, and I was just kind of like, I'll get out of it. And man, I'm so glad I didn't. So last year was a blast. I got Rookie of the Year last year, and then this year is off to a great start. So that's my story.
That's great. Yeah. So you had a kayak for quite some time before you really got serious and started tournament fishing, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I had like a spider rig. I was serious about like crappie fishing on it. I had like 4 10-foot poles hanging off that thing, spider rigging on the Tennessee River, and then down in like, Lake Barkley, Kentucky Lake. I fished that a ton. But yeah, not really bass fishing until, just a few years ago.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And now it's addiction, right?
Now it's yeah. You know how it is. So
I know exactly how it is. So would you say your favorite species to target now is bass, or is that not accurate?
Yeah, it is. Well, if I could just get in the car and go fish for redfish, that'd probably be right there with it. The fight on those things is just killer. You hook into one, drag's going, and the fight is on, you know. But as far as just, you know, anywhere in the country, yeah, bass fishing. And honestly, we've talked about this quite a bit, but you know, I hate the idea of moving anywhere else just because of the club. Like the fishing's awesome, but honestly, the best part of this is, you know, hanging out with you guys or other guys in the club. You know, we were out there Saturday up at Stanley, and Scott Brands was up there, Nick Weatherall was there, Terry, Gene. So like just hanging out with people and enjoying the time. Like when we go camp out or get an Airbnb for like a week at Truman, that's gold for me. So
Me too. That's the best part of it all. I agree. Yeah. All right. Well, let's finish this up with you real quick here. Congratulations. That was a hell of a win. I saw your smile. I remember seeing you at before they announced everything. I just saw your smile. Yeah, that smile said everything. You know, they told me how excited, how happy you were. Obviously, right? That first win, getting the first check. You know, Jeremy and I, we've been there a couple times, but it never gets old, right? It'll never get old. You know, it's exciting to win. That's what we try to do, right? It's the end goal is to try to win, right? So, yeah, congratulations on that. I know you're ecstatic. Is awesome seeing how happy you were. So congratulations, man.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk. Let's get the other man here who did really well the next day. Jeremy, I got to step out for 1 second, but you want to take it from here, Matt, real quick?
Yeah, I'll take over for a little bit. All right, so Jeremy, so we've got, well, Alex isn't here. I'll talk about it. Since he normally has a bag that he's taken with him on his kayaks, I guess he gets a real restroom break here. That was one of the stories. But no, yeah, let's talk multi. So you smoked it. I remember seeing you later in the day because we were kind of passing back and forth on each other, and I was looking at the leaderboard. I was like, oh yeah, Jeremy's got it. And then it went nuts. It didn't go from Jeremy's got it. It went from how many inches is he going to end with? Because you had it in the bag.
So it was
good.
definitely an interesting day. I mean, if anybody has like looked at the cards, or maybe even if you haven't looked at the cards, take a look at my identifier. It's going to be my trademark for the rest of the year. The middle portion of my identifier is reserved for the statement trout suck. They have been the bane of my existence for 3 years now in multi. Of course, I did have the win at 11 Mile last year, but I've struggled with trout and keeping them on the line. I didn't have too much of an issue before early on doing the tournaments, but the last like 2.5 years, I've really struggled keeping them onto the boat. So I've actually started writing trout suck in the middle of my identifier, and it's actually done well for me. But I started out the day, I did pre-fish a little bit, really just finding a solid walleye pattern in the shallows. A big goal this year has been for walleye fishing in our multis to not rely on pulling like a worm rig or anything like that. I'm trying to go more towards like the artificials and figuring those out. So of course I went with the old faithful flicker shad. And I actually found if I was ticking the grass in about probably 6 to 8 feet of water over the grass, I was getting bit left and right pretty much. I mean, it was absolutely insane how many bites I would get. So that's what I found during pre-fishing. So during the tournament, of course, we had the bass the day before, so I kind of knew where they were going to be at. So I went straight out to try to get 2 solid bass, and I ended up with 2 15s. So I went from there, immediately started going for walleye, and my goal was to just get walleye on the board and then move to trout because I knew that was going to be my biggest ordeal of the day. So I trolled in the shallows a little bit. I caught one nice walleye that ended up being 18 1/4. And I actually had a trout bite in the shallows. He came up to the surface and immediately spit my hook. Story of my life right now. So went back to trolling. caught 2 more small walleye. It was like a 12 and a 14, I think. And I knew I needed to get those out of the bag, but I also knew that I had to get that trout. So I looked at the leaderboard real quick just to check and see, and Alex was up top, and I was about 12 and a half inches behind him without a trout. And he did have a limit. So I was like, okay, I just abandoned ship where I was at, started heading out looking for trout. I ended up trolling from the South Islands all the way to the back side of the main South Cove, then cut across the lake and trolled all the way across the north shore, like all the cliffs there. I ended up having 2 bites with trout that I felt. And, you know that immediate, like when that rod shakes like that, when they hit, when you're trolling, you know it's on there and it's a trout. And it would just go slack right afterwards. You wouldn't see them jump, wouldn't feel them, anything. It would just hit, then go slack. So I went down, and of course I do change out my hooks on my flick shad. I usually use owners on them, but it hadn't helped. So I was going across, and I was like, to heck with it. I'm gonna, head back towards the south, and then maybe move towards the dam. So I literally troll straight across like mid-lake. Like if you took the main body of the lake and cut it in half, I was right down the middle. I was going from north to south shore, and probably about halfway across is the first time I got that real solid hit. And I kept my drag relatively loose and immediately dropped my rod tip down into the water, had a good solid hook set, and I fight it a little bit, do everything I can to keep it from jumping, and I got that trout into the boat. And it was 11 3/4. I was like, I don't care. It measures. I can go try to cull up my walleye and everything afterwards. So I got it measured, got it submitted, and was super happy. I was right behind Alex now at that point. And I started trolling back, and I was still going to the south, and then I was going to cut west along the south shore, hitting my grass line again. And I was literally grabbing my rod on the right-hand side to reel that flicker shad in the rest of the way. And I was going to change that out to a worm rig. I wasn't going to originally, but I was like, I was just going to stay just a little bit deeper, keep my flicker shad on my left, and then do the worm rig on the right. And as soon as I'm reeling in that flicker shad, I mean, I'm smoking it into the boat. It got absolutely demolished. I mean, I couldn't even handle it at first. I had to tighten the drag just a little bit. I knew I had a solid hook set at that point. Fought it in, and it ended up being a 17 3/4 trout. And that I knew put me ahead of Alex at that point. So then I was just like, okay, you can't beat a 17 3/4 trout. I mean, you can catch bigger ones, but when you get that in your multi-species bag, that's money right there.
Yeah.
So from that point, I just headed on to the south area and took a right from where I was at, headed west, and started trolling that flicker shad. I was actually on the phone with my wife. She had called, talked with her a little bit, and while I was on the phone with her, I upgraded my walleyes twice. So I went from having a 14 and a 12 to having 2 more 17s. So that put me way up. And at that point, I really didn't know what else to do. I still had almost an hour and a half left. So I figured I'd just go back to where I caught that 18 1/4 smallmouth the day before during the bass tournament and see if I could upgrade my bass any. So I went back over there, and sure enough, about 5 casts in, it was a Texas rig speed crawl. I mean, you just about can't beat it sometimes. About 5 casts in, I'm hitting, felt that thump. Sure enough, it was a big 18 1/4 smallmouth again. So I ended up with another 3-inch upgrade there towards the end. That was probably about 115, 120-ish. And so from there, I just, I cast around, fan cast a little bit. But then I started moving back towards the launch area because, the storms and stuff were starting to move in. So I made a couple more casts just as I was moving back towards the launch. But at that point, I had 104. Felt pretty okay with that at that point. Really nothing else that I could upgrade too much other than I still had one 15-inch bass. But at that point, I was just like, let's head on to the ramp.
Yeah, that was a day.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And the biggest thing is just, sticking with it. That that trout gets me so frustrated. At Pueblo, I literally had the winning fish on the hook twice. I had a huge trout that was bigger than the one that I caught at Trinidad that hit, jumped, spit the hook, dove back down on top of my flicker shad and hit it. Like it went tight, and he grabbed it again and came up and shook the hook out again. And that would have, I mean, that fish, I think I was 13 inches behind Lindsay. And that fish would have easily put me up there with her. And then I ended up trolling again for another like 40 minutes at Pueblo and couldn't hook another trout. And then finally hooked another one at the very end of the day. And by the time I actually got a picture of it, it was 202. So it was just, really sticking in there and, concentrating on just, not getting down about that trout and just, if it's your weakness, just keep grinding it out and keep pushing through. And the nice part is, we get to talk with everybody in the club and, everybody's supportive. Everybody talks about the things that you could do to adjust and, do a little bit better and, different hooks on your flicker shads and stuff like that. Finally they hung in and stuck through and ended up getting 2 trout on the board that day. So that was probably the biggest win for me, is just the trout.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel the exact same way about trout.
Yeah.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Jason DeWong had a trout at like 7 o'clock in the morning.
I know. I wish I would have.
I was happy for him.
He had his whole limit like first thing in the morning. I remember that.
Yeah.
So you said something kind of cool there, and I was talking to Lindsay about this because I was trying to catch trout. I was spinning out on trout, and I ended up catching one, and it ended up like throwing the hook in the boat at me. I got it in. Of course, like I ended up almost getting a treble hook in my leg. I just got my pants or whatever, but caught it. But I was trying to get a bigger one, and I was trolling, and I saw Lindsay, and I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, I'm giving up on trout. I'm just going to get over to this point and go catch walleye and try to upgrade on that because I already caught some walleye over there. So I book it. I'm hauling ass, and that is when, boom, rod tip goes down again. Caught a bigger trout. Talked to Lindsay afterwards, and she's like, "Yeah, same thing." When she was going like 3 miles an hour or faster, just hauling ass is when the trout were biting. So, man, speed is such a crazy thing to get trout for sometimes. I don't know, and the whole day I'm like, I gotta slow down, don't spiral out. And then when I picked it up just to move to another point is when I got hit, going much faster than I normally.
Yeah, when I caught that 17, that bait had to be moving at least 6 miles an hour. Because I was trolling at about 2 to 2.5. And I mean, I was reeling that spinning rod as quick as I could. And that trout just absolutely hammered it. And I mean, it had to be at least 6.5 miles an hour. And it was it's kind of a dark chrome, like a purple chrome shad. And I mean, it's got a good flash and stuff to it, but those trout, like, I don't know exactly what they're looking for, but apparently it was something, it wanted something moving quick, and it wanted something flashy because they weren't hitting. I tried a few different flicker shads on one of my rods that weren't quite as like bright and shiny. They were like kind of more like UV fire tiger colors and stuff like that. And they weren't really hitting that very well. Like if it didn't have a flash to it, I couldn't get them to hit. But pretty much all of my hits from the trout came on a more like chrome style flicker shad. And man, they wanted it quick.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this. So with trout, you can't go all the time. You throw a tube jig, and you just pop a tube jig and reel as fast as you can while popping that thing the whole time. They'll smoke it. But the same token, though. So for me, for the walleye, I'd stop, and they'd hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, pedal and I'd stop, and they'd hit it. I'd pedal and I'd stop, and they'd hit it. I mean, you got to play. Right? Sometimes they want more speed, and this is for all fish, not just walleye, not just trout. Sometimes they want it faster. Sometimes they need that change of cadence real quick. Just a little erratic motion just makes them bite it, right? If you're going one speed, you speed up real quick. I mean, I know I do this a lot when I'm trolling, is I try to take turns.
Yeah.
Not sharp turns, just nice, easy turn. And my inside rod, if I'm turning left, my inside rod will basically stop while the other one will speed up. And hit one or the other, it clues me in, right? It's
Yeah.
something I always use to help clue me in, right? So when I make that turn, if they hit the outside one, I know they want it faster. So now I can go a little faster. If they get it on the pause, now I know I need to start using pauses as I'm trolling, right? I'll stop, pause, stop, go, pause. So that helps clue you in a little bit too. So same thing with walleye too. It's the same walleye. Sometimes you'll start reeling up, and like Jeremy said, that's when they hit it, right?
And I think that was one of the things, like that shallow bite that I found for the walleye. Like my flicker shad was ticking off the grass. Like you could feel it hit, and it would actually like shudder for a second on the grass, and then as soon as it would pop free of the grass was usually when I was getting the bites.
Me too. If I was fishing deeper water than you for the walleye,
Yeah.
I found a really nice spot late in the day. I just didn't have enough time. But it was, I was fishing like 12 to 16, 17, 18 foot of water.
Yeah.
But where the grass a little bit. And I was getting down there and I was just, like you said, ticking the grass. And I had to continue to have to reel it back up to check to see if there was weeds on there, because something, you feel the tick, 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 and it stops down there, right? So what I always do when I get a weed on there is I snap it just to try to break it free to off. And when I did that a few times, I'd get bit. But the same thing is I was ticking that grass. When it came off the grass, they would bite it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Key to be right on top of that grass for the walleye specifically, right? And just in that particular, it was good. It was a great day again. I mean, Jeremy had a hell of a day out there. I mean, you catch over 100 inches. I don't care if we have 6 fish or not.
Yeah.
It's still pretty damn good, A little different. We go to Spinney or 11 Mile. But still, it takes like 110 plus, but just because the pike, right?
Yep.
So speaking of that's, the next multi-species now, that's Spinney, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Next multi-species is Spinney. I believe it's the 29th of July, towards the end of the month. Hoping that the weeds have really set in by that point in time. I talked to a couple people here recently. They said that the weeds are definitely really starting to come up pretty well. They haven't really formed those like almost partition walls that they form each year. They're not quite there yet, but they're real close. And I know if anybody follows our monthlies, Pete from the board actually just hung like a 23.5-inch cut bow from Spinney today. So they're definitely chewing.
Yeah, it was 11 Mile.
Yeah, I flew over 11 Mile in Spinney a couple days ago, and I was surprised there weren't a ton of boats out there, but the water level looks, I think it was at like 102% or something like that.
Yeah, that's the report from CPW is 11 Mile right now is at 102% capacity, and it's going, they've got the tubes at the bottom of the dam going, and it's spilling over the top.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was
That's
like a
crazy.
waterfall shooting out of that thing. So
yeah. No, Jeremy, congrats on the win, man.
Thanks.
A lot of the day I was like, did pretty good most of the day, thinking, okay, I need some upgrades for sure. And then here comes Jeremy late in the day, starts popping off 18-inch fish, 18-inch fish, 17-inch fish. When you got that trout, it's game over. I mean, that was right there. That
trout, man, that, when you're kind of looking for a 12-inch trout and you catch a 17, it's such a big bonus. I mean, you've got a 5-inch advantage right there, and that it really sets it apart.
Yeah, I'll say this. So when the standings go off at 1 o'clock, I don't have visibility after that anymore. I don't know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So at 1 o'clock, we were, because I had just caught a fish, I think it was. I had a 15-inch trout, 15-inch trout, yeah. You had me about a quarter inch off. You don't know this, but I know. You had me by a quarter inch. And I was debating what to do. Do I go after a bigger walleye? Do I, go after a bass? I was like, I'm just gonna go catch a bass because I know I didn't fish for bass at all the entire day.
Yeah.
I caught my bass walleye. So not even cast like once, I don't think, for bass. So I'm gonna go try to catch a bass. I know I can catch a 15.5-inch bass. I'm pretty quick, I think. So I was gonna go try to upgrade that quarter inch. And then I caught a walleye. I caught a 17-inch walleye while I was trying to get over to the area where the bass were, and that gave me a little upgrade. I was like, okay, now I'm saying, okay, now I was ahead of you, but I had no idea what was happening after that, right? So then, okay, what do I do now? You know, that's when that's what I love about multi-species, the strategy.
Yeah.
Do I this fish and try to go find another walleye, a trout, another bass? And there's a lot of things in multi-species. With bass, you just got to think about location and find another bass, right? But with multi, it's a whole different game. There's a lot more strategy in multi-species.
Yeah,
So
you really have to build your day out for multi-species, because you got to decide, you know, what are your cut points? When are you going to basically turn it loose and go after something else? With bass and walleye in the mix, I mean, a lot of times you'll catch, like you said, you know, you were fishing for walleye and you caught your bass for the day. So a lot of times you can fill your limit, but sometimes you do have to decide, you know, when's my cut point that I'm going to throw everything else down and go try to upgrade this one particular species. And the strategy in that can be, you know, overwhelming sometimes, but then when it works out, man, it can really pay off throughout the day.
Yeah, so I was sitting there, and I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? What do I got to do to upgrade here? So I was debating between going after trout at that point, even though I had a 15-inch trout. I know there's 20s in there.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, maybe I could hook into a 17, 18, 19-inch trout just to go around. And then I started thinking, well, I know there's better quality walleye in there, and there just are, right?
Yeah.
So I thought the best opportunity to try to upgrade big time was to go get a walleye. And so I did. I trolled for walleye in that nasty wind. I was out there till the end. I mean, you know me. I'm going to go the last minute. I don't care what the conditions are. I got a native, dude. I ain't got to worry. And I was in that nasty wind fighting it like no other. I'd hook a fish, and then the rodeo began because it wants to turn me, you know, with the kayak. Yep. I'm fighting. The wind's blowing me. I got another line going out. I actually got a double. I had 3 doubles that day. I had a double, a trout and a walleye, and I had 2 doubles of walleye. So in that nasty wind, I doubled up, and I'm trying to weigh which one's heavier, right, left or right. And I'm like, okay, this one's heavier. And I'm reeling it in, and they get tangled up together. And I had the net. It goes under my drive. It was a complete mess. Complete mess. I actually just had to open the bell on one of them, on the left one, and I was reeling the other one in. I ended up bringing both of them together and netting both of them at the same time. But the wind's blowing me. I only have so much time before I'm going to hit shore, and I'm sitting there trying to unhook them. And at some point, I just picked up, and I just had to pedal back into deep water and then start dealing with them again. But yeah, it was a mess. But yeah, it was fun. I mean, I caught a lot of fish at the end. When you talk about a walleye chop, right? We had conditions. It tends to be a little harder for walleye.
Yeah.
But when you get that walleye chop going, it really activates them pretty well. And that was more than a walleye chop. That was pretty nasty out there. Then I had to cross the damn lake, knowing that pretty much I think Jeremy already had me at that point. Cross it into all that wind, get beat up by the wind and waves. The whole time thinking, I just don't. No way I got this. And yeah, no, I didn't. Jeremy, it wasn't even close. It wasn't close. I was 30-inch wall do something, but yeah, congratulations. That was a hell of a day.
Thanks. Yeah, that's always the fear out there. I mean, one drop of a jig or one hit on a flicker shad, and I mean, it could easily be a 28 to a 32-inch walleye out there. So I mean, you pretty much have to keep going until the very end as far as you can, because there's no telling. I mean, I wasn't safe. Like, I had 104, but anybody could have easily tagged a almost 30-inch walleye and jumped ahead of me. Like, that's just how crazy Trinidad could be.
It can be. Not likely, but it can be. I think it's the first year we didn't have one over 28 inches. First tournament, or even pre-fishing leading up to the tournament, that we didn't get one over at least 27.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't think I was going to end up with big fish with an 18 and a quarter. I mean, I didn't think there was any way that I'd end up with big fish. That honestly is a rather small big fish pot for Trinidad. I know the last time that I won big fish there, it was a 25-inch walleye. We've had so many, even just, 20 inchers posted. I mean, it's crazy that an 18 and a quarter took it. Luckily I had the consistency for it.
I agree.
So it was a bass that took big fish, right?
So I actually had an 18 and a quarter walleye and an 18 and a quarter bass.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that is bizarre. I figured there'd be at least a 20 walleye. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, it was the day though. It was a great weekend. Again, thanks to all the tournament directors, the club for lining everything up, because you guys hit it perfectly. The last two tournaments have been, perfect. I mean, you can't miss with June.
Yeah.
Early June, May, Pueblo and Trinidad. You can't miss with that. But yeah, I mean, it was perfect conditions. As Matt said earlier, to have the bass side, to have 10 people with 80 inches or more, that's ridiculous, right? And then the walleye were biting. It was great.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, congrats, Jeremy. I did want to touch on a couple things for Trinidad. Just kind of just came back to my mind here. First off, the accommodations there. If you think about camping at a place for one of our tournaments, it's one of the best places. The facilities are amazing. A lot of us did that, and great time. And then another thing is, hey guys, what we do on the water really reflects the club. And we had, unfortunately, I don't know if it was just unclear to people, but there were some violations over at the dam area where it's clearly marked as a no fish area. And that is a DQ. If you get caught doing that, if someone did turn you in, it would disqualify you. But worse than that is it's just our reputation with these clubs that let us go out there. We have agreements with these places. We don't just organize our own tournament and go out there. We have to coordinate this with them, do the insurance piece and all these memos of understanding and liability and all of that stuff. So all that work that goes into it, all it takes is just a few bad experiences from that park to kind of shut it down. So I'm not saying that to say that we're there, but on the flip side of that, we also do a lot of great things as a club, helping out the charities that we support. But beyond that, picking up trash at Pueblo goes a huge way for us. When they see you out there, just bring it in line that you see instead of cutting it off, and just doing the right things, having your licenses and all of that, and wearing your life jacket and showing other people that kayakers do wear their life jackets out there, for people that have their kids out that maybe aren't. Little things like that make a big difference. So it's not to highlight anybody or spotlight anybody that did anything wrong. It's more so just to kind of put awareness out there that, hey, if you do break a rule, that's a park rule, that is a disqualification for the club. And beyond our tournament, what's more important is making sure that we're maintaining good relationships with these organizations and places that we're going.
Yeah, it's important. Even little things like if you're speeding around the lake, you get a ticket speeding around the lake. That's just DQ too. But it looks bad on the club. And again, we want to maintain those relationships that we have, because we have had issues. This is the second time we've had an issue now at Trinidad, unfortunately. And Trinidad is the place we all love to go. A few years ago, we had several people who did not pay the park pass fee, and they let park let us know that on the clubs, they let us know they were not happy with that. I know I heard this last one with the dam issue with the people fishing behind that no fish zone at the tower, that the dam officials were there. The park officials were there. The park official there, she got out of her truck and she was screaming. She was not happy. She was screaming at whoever was fishing there to get out of there. Again, that looks bad for us. So yeah, let's just try to be better at that as a whole, right? Yeah. Not only everywhere we go, we want to maintain a good reputation being kayak anglers, that we respect everybody and rules and other anglers as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So upcoming, we've got Horsetooth. I was just up there, just something to point out, the north area, their park pass. So it's not a state park. So state parks pass doesn't work there. So you'll have to buy a pass for the day there. And their machine was down on the north side. So I imagine by the time the tournament rolls around, they'll have that worked, but we'll coordinate with them and see what's going on with that before. But just kind of a reminder that you will need a Parks Pass for Horsetooth. That's not just your standard annual state Parks Pass. And then so we've got that coming up with Spinney. As far as Spinney goes, for Spinney and 11 mile, if you are a rookie this season, or if you haven't even fished a tournament, those are the ones in my mind to come out to. Even if like you don't know how to catch trout, you don't know how to catch pike. I was in that boat last year and ended up catching the fish of my lifetime out there. I caught a tiger muskie the first day out. Gone back there and caught 40+ inch pike, gigantic trout. Jeremy caught a giant last year as well. But there's that is a fishery that if you have not fished a tournament, come out to Spinney or 11 mile. And why a tournament, not just by yourself? You're going to see how guys catch them out there. You're going to catch a little bit of that. You're going to learn a lot by just being out there on a tournament. So that's just some advice that I would have. If there's any tournament, if there's one to do, it would be either Spinney or 11 mile on the multi series.
Agree.
Yeah.
And then the West Coast Championship, Jeremy, I'll let you talk that piece.
All right, so Alex worked this last year with the team that runs the West Coast Championship out in California. If you don't know anything about it, watch a little bit of Greg Blanchard and Damian Tao. It's an amazing tournament that they put on. There's clubs. It's kind of the West Coast version of the AAKC. They invite a lot of clubs. You know, the qualification for it, it's the top 25%. From any qualifying event. We're running 3 qualifying events: Pueblo Bass, Trinidad Bass, and Horsetooth. So the top 25% from Pueblo and Trinidad have already qualified. Then the top 25 from Horsetooth will qualify as well. So that top quarter. Also, anybody that fishes all 3 of the qualifying events, if you sign up and you fish all 3 of them, no matter what placing you have in them, you also qualify for it. So this year it's going to be August 18th and 19th out on the Delta. And if you've ever watched any kind of California fishing or anything like that, dude, the Delta is a sick fishery. That place is absolutely amazing. There's groups out there that when they do either a tournament for kayaks, you know, you're talking 100 inches a day to win it. When you're talking boats, they're constantly posting 30-pound days. That fishery is absolutely amazing. It's getting a ton of water right now too. And between that water inflow and the tides, when it stacks up, dude, the top water fishing, like if you ever want to go somewhere and throw like a frog on a mat, or if you want to punch, the Delta's it. So that's August 18th and 19th. We'll get the list out so everybody knows who exactly is qualified. But like I said, it's that top quarter from Pueblo, Trinidad, and Horsetooth, as well as anybody that fishes all 3. And that's going to be a phenomenal thing. If you watch any of Greg Blanchard's stuff, dude, the show that they put on out there is phenomenal. They love the kayak fishermen out there. I was actually supposed to go last year to Clear. I had my Airbnb. I had everything set up. And then I had my knee surgery and had to cancel it. So they put on an amazing tournament series out there. So if you do qualify, if you're looking for a national type trip to go do, that's definitely one to look into. And like I said, we'll get the list out here for who all's qualifying for it. We'll get everything sent out. It's a phenomenal fishery and a phenomenal organization running it.
Yeah, that's a bucket list lake for most people too. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna try my best to make it out there. I don't know if I'll be able to or not. Vacation's my problem right now, but yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love watching when they have like just a frog tournament out there, and it's like, all right, nothing but frogs, and holy gosh, that's awesome. So
looks fun. Matt, can I mention one more thing too? Since Native sponsor of the Trinidad tournament, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So since I am affiliated with Native, there is a tournament coming up in October. It's the closest one to us. So Native runs their own series of kayak tournaments as well. It'll be I think it's October 28th down at Lake Fork. You know, a lot of us I try to go fork every year. What's unique about the way that Native is doing their tournaments is that anybody can join them. You don't have to be a Native. It could be anybody can join them, but it's every fish counts. They'll have a slot. They'll have like a 2-inch minimum or whatever the fish is, but it's every fish counts. It's not top 5 fish. It's the old MLF style. Every fish counts. So if you catch, 10, 12 inches, you have 120 inches, so it'd be fun to see just how many inches it'll take a fork to win that tournament. On top of that, I think they play 2 kayaks on top of the prize money and everything else. On top of that, though, they have what's unique also is they do a hourly biggest bass hourly wins $1,000 hourly. It's a 2-day event.
Gosh,
it's a pretty cool event that I'm gonna do my best to make. Unfortunately, it's during hunting seasons and all that stuff, so I got to work around that. But yeah, it's a unique one. I strongly recommend that one to everybody too. Is another good one too. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Opportunity. We got the help me out here. KBF stuff that we qualify for as well, right, Jeremy?
Yep.
So we qualify for KBF. We qualify for the West Coast Championship, and there's other opportunities out there.
Yeah, we'll have our qualifiers for the All-American as well for next year too. So again, as the season wraps up, luckily we get to qualify both multi-species and bass members for the AKC, and that's an absolute blast. I had a little bit of a mishap if anybody saw my post for it this year, but man, Truman was an amazing fishery. That was my first time there, and it was a blast. All 3 of us were down there in the house. We had a great time. It was a phenomenal tournament. They put on a great show. Josh Booth and his team. So that's another one that we get to qualify for. I mean, we're pretty fortunate with this club. We've got enough renown that a lot of clubs, they invite us to stuff. We've got a lot of people that are in tune, like Alex with Native. So we get a lot of information like that. So take advantage of that. Even if you can only do like 1 or 2 traveling events a year, look into it, see what you could do, see how you can qualify for them. We will have roll downs for the AAKC. But yeah, if you can qualify for one of those, or if you could make a trip like the West Coast or the Native No Limits down there at Lake Fork, dude, those are phenomenal tournaments and phenomenal opportunities to really get out there and see what the kayaking community does.
Agree.
Yeah, I think the payouts on those Native tournaments have been insane. I've seen some of the recent ones they're doing, and yeah, with that $1,000 an hour, multi-day plus multiple kayaks are given away, and then the money on top of that, it's one of the high, if not, it's probably the most or one of the most higher paying tournament series out there right now, which is pretty cool.
As far as total cash pot, it is one of the highest out there.
Yeah. And then also, hey, we're giving away 2 kayaks at the end of the year. We haven't really talked about that for a while because we secured that so early on before the season even started. But yeah, thanks again to Old Town and then Native and Waterline putting together for the Natives. So yeah, excited to give that away at the end of the season as well.
Yep. Good stuff.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think that about wraps it up for us, unless you got anything else.
Nope.
Awesome. Hey, schedule's up. We've got Red Willow as well. That was there in place of John Martin. So that's in August. But yeah, I think we're all set here. Thanks, guys, so much. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, congratulations.
Awesome. Everybody at Horsetooth.
Yeah. Thanks. We'll see you there.